Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I'm Brianna and welcome back with me in my new camera. Woo! I am so excited to do this video. I've been meaning to do it for a long time. I know October is already like halfway over, but I mean, better late than never. And so these are scary and horrifying books, and I've split them up into two categories. You guys know I like a lot of psychological stuff. I'm not a big fan of ghosts, vampires, stuff like that. There's always exceptions. But the things that really scare me are not the typical category of when you think of spooky or scary stories. A lot of people take that to mean supernatural stuff, not always, but anyways, I do have two piles of books here. These are recommendations, books that have really scared me, or that have aspects that have really unsettled me. And I have the first category, which is books that are meant to be scary. They are advertised to scare you, or the premise is supposed to chill you. And then I have another set of books that maybe that's not the premise, but there's something about them or something else that really scared me and that frightened me personally. So if you like any of my book recommendations, I hope that these are helpful to you. I know October is almost halfway over, but hopefully you can squeeze one or two of these in to really get the spooky mood. And I am wearing a sweater because I'm in denial that it is not cold enough outside. So maybe if I wear more winter clothes, the rain will start falling and the temperature dropping. We'll see. But so let's go. So first up, this was tough. I wasn't really sure how this was supposed to be categorized, but I'm putting it into this one because, I mean, the premise is frightening. So we have the Bunker Diaries by Kevin Brooks. And I'm pretty sure that all of these are 5-star book reviews from me. 4.5 or 5 stars, so that should tell you something. This young teenager is kidnapped and he ends up in a bunker with about 7 other people, and one of them is a young girl, and every day they are fed food and given paper that they can write on, but they never are told why they're there. Nothing's ever explained to them. And then as time goes on, something really horrible happens, and that starts something that I don't want to give it away, something that I never really thought about, and I don't think people really think about with kidnapping stories, is a certain possibility that could happen in that scenario. And this terrified me. I was terrified for like 2 days, looking over my shoulder, not, you know, telling myself over and over, do not help people. If you are alone, do not look inside someone's van. If they need help, like, I was so terrified every second for like 2 days. So very amazing. And again, this is a YA novel, and this is a YA horror novel. And I've branched out with YA this year, although I read this about a year or two ago. And I love finding gems like these because, you know, I'm so impressed and I absolutely loved it. So yeah, make no mistake, this is serious and kind of upsetting. Next we have a short story collection by my man Stephen King. We have Night Shift. And again, something that's changed over the years is I kept saying I'm not into short stories, blah, 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 blah. I've read quite a bit more short stories, and this one, it is 450 something pages. I think I read it in like a day and a half because it was just that good. There's 20 stories. I think there's only 2 maybe or 3 that I didn't like, and that is really good. And there is aspects in here like a machine coming to life, like a big factory machine that never would have scared me before when I thought it was really dumb. But there's a reason why Stephen King is one of my favorite authors, and that's because he does do scary things in the way that scares me. Like things like his vampire stories, things like that don't get to me, but like his things that might seem kind of mundane or maybe silly to some people really terrify me. And I have another book by him in this haul. But this, I mean, Stephen King, it's definitely, these are catered to scare you. And this one, I think kidnapping is a frightening scenario and it's not really a thriller, so I do think this is, the Bunker Diaries, the one I showed you, is supposed to be horror, but I wasn't sure. But I wanted to talk about it as the first book, so yeah. Again, Night Shift. So, and fun fact, with The Stand, which I haven't read, there's a short story in here that's the basis for The Stand. So yeah, these, I didn't think to write down which ones were my favorite, but if you go on my GoodReads and see my review for this, I talk about and list my favorite stories from this collection, and this was so good. Again, I read it in a day and a half and it's like 450 pages, so check this one out. we have, and this was another one that I wasn't quite sure, but we have This Little Stranger by Sarah Waters. Now, this is one that deals with, it's a gothic page turner, and I don't want to say anything without giving stuff away, but one post-war summer, Dr. Faraday is called to a patient at Hundreds Hall, and he remembers Hundreds Hall as being ritz and fancy and elegant when he was a kid, and they used to have parties there where they would allow the whole community to be there on their lawn and having a party. And one day he snuck in to the house, and he's just never really forgotten about that house. And then he is now called because the mother, son, and daughter are struggling to keep pace with the changing society. They don't want the money to keep it up. It's falling apart. It's dilapidated. And weird stuff is happening. And this is a situation where a person like me who does not like ghost things or is not scared by ghost things, is not really overtly impressed a lot of times by that concept, this really takes a turn. And I finished this book and I threw it across the room, because I didn't throw it across the room, but I was so pissed off because I was pissed at the ending, I was pissed at whatever, and then 5 minutes later I was like, this is absolutely brilliant. And again, I keep wanting to describe and say more, but I don't want to give anything away. And this is my favorite Sarah Waters. She's really hit or miss with me. I didn't like Fingersmith at all. I liked this. I read The Paying Guest, which was one that at the end I wasn't sure if I liked, and then I decided that I liked. So this isn't even an author that I absolutely love, but her writing in this is very clever in the way she did things, and I'm still thinking about it. And yeah, it's A Little Stranger by Sarah Waters. We have one of my favorite books of all time, which is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. And I won't say too much because everyone knows about Frankenstein, but if you've only seen TV or movie adaptations, you do not know. But as a philosophy major, this is up my alley. A lot of people don't like it. I have 2 friends that think it's awful. And it's funny, the podcast I do with me and my friends, the next episode is going to be a Frankenstein and Dracula discussion, and I'm the only one that loves both, and they both are lukewarm about both or absolutely despise this. And if I'm a philosophy major, and this is one of my favorite books. Philosophy used to be science back in the day, because it was all mainly theory. It couldn't really be put into practice. So, and that's one of my favorite intersections of philosophy, besides political philosophy, is like biological philosophy. I don't really know the exact way to call it, but this deals with that. So people probably find this really boring. I'm not surprised if people read it and they're thinking of it's going to be something else, and it turns out to be this. It's quite philosophical. It does have scary elements, but I absolutely love this book. So, Frankenstein. Next we have The Collector by John Fowles. Again, and Frankenstein is more sci-fi. It's not advertised as horror, but I mean, in the TV and movies it is, but it's more sci-fi. So yeah, The Collector by John Fowles. This book terrified me for an entire week. This was absolutely, this girl gets kidnapped. She's kidnapped by a guy who won the UK equivalent of a lottery, and he collects butterflies. And he kidnaps her, and the shtick is that he doesn't want anything sexual from her. There's nothing she can do. He just wants to observe her, like one of his butterflies. And the point of view, I think, switches between him and her, and it's terrifying. This is the only book I would recommend by this author, though. I read 2 of his other books, which were over 600 pages, and they were absolutely awful and a waste of my time and life. So, quite disappointing that his other stuff is absolutely terrible. I haven't read The French Lieutenant's Woman, which I've heard is good, though, and Daniel Martin, though. I read The Magus, and I read something else. But I haven't read those 2, which I've heard are good, but oh my god, The Magus, and I like blocked it out. It's a maggot. Terrible books, do not read them. This, chilling, terrifying, amazing. I was terrified for a week. Then we have Dracula by Bram Stoker. You all know the story. I listened to this on audio when I was in college working at a library, and it terrified me. And this was something that, not the whole book, but this was something that, there's a passage that describes him when Dracula's crawling out of the tower and changing into a bat, and he's being observed by the main guy. And it made my skin crawl. It was horrible. And the whole time, you know, they're afraid of this guy because it's unnatural, it's from hell, they're religious, and that's what terrifies them. And I felt that fear from them. I felt it, and I would recommend audio. I, at the time, used something where people volunteer to read chapters and then they upload it. And I haven't actually read it in its physical form, but this is really good. Again, though, I could see why people may not like it, and I could see them being disappointed with the ending because it's quite rushed. But I still think this is brilliant, and it's an absolute 5-star read for me. It's so good. And this vampires, again, it's something I'm not into, but very well done, and I felt the fear of the characters. Now, those are all books that are geared towards being scary. Now, these are books that are not geared that way, but literally had aspects that literally made me feel so uncomfortable or terrified. So first we have The Long Walk by Stephen King. This is one of my Richard Bachman, pseudonym for Stephen King. This is one of my favorite books of him. This I did a book review on. I will link down below. I'm trying to think if I did. I don't think I did book reviews on those books, but I will link my Long Walk book review from years ago, and terrifying. It's the day of the long walk. Everyone participates in this. Not everyone participates. You volunteer. You don't have to do this competition at all. And all you're told is that you'll get your greatest desires if you win. It's a competition to see who can walk the longest. But if you fall behind, you get 3 warnings. You can't eat, you can't sleep. And if you fall behind, you get 3 warnings, and then you get shot and killed. And the terrifyingness of it for me is that there's no reason that these people have to do this. It's, and just the aspects, and reading it, and you're reading it, and you can feel them get hungry, you can feel their feet bleed, you can feel everything, and then the dialogues that they have about what's going on, and they're talking to people, and then there's a reveal about who one person is, and it's just so, so good. Oh my gosh. This is one of the ones I recommend to people every time they ask me about Stephen King, or his like pseudonym stuff and the stuff he wrote under that. Next we have Lord of the Flies by William Golding. Everyone kind of knows about this one. And this was good. There were aspects of this that freaked me out, that made me uncomfortable. It didn't terrify me overtly, but it made me very uncomfortable. And there's just a lot of great lines in here about society and things like that. And I listened to it. If you listen to it, like, there's certain lines that are just said over and over again that really make your skin crawl. And this is a classic, and it's a nice short classic. So I would say if you haven't read this, read this. It's very good, and I would even say maybe listen to it, because I think that adds a chilliness factor to it. Next we have the Bellweather Revivals, which I read this year, which is so good, and I would say this is a companion piece to read with The Secret History. So definitely read them, I would say in tandem, to be honest. So group of college students, like, this is so unsettling. This guy gets into Cambridge, he falls in line with this group of students, this one girl, Iris, he's in love with, and then he's seduced by the life of privilege and everything, and Eden and Iris are twins, I think, maybe? And Eden, the brother, is really into music, and he has a theory. He has a theory with music and things like that, and how it can do something. And he really believes in this theory, and that is all I'm going to say, because this was knockout and outstanding. And Secret History is the same concept, the same thing, but through the classics and theories based that the classics believed in back in the day. And I absolutely love these concepts when they are done well. Like, it's so disturbing. Like, there's this scene near the end that's just upsetting. Like, the climax of it all is so upsetting, and it is absolutely fantastic and spooky, creepy, and please, please, please read this. I need people to read this. Both. Read this, The Secret History, and then I'd love to talk about both, because they go hand in hand, and they kind of almost invert the same concept, but they're executed almost in an the inverse of each other, sort of. But that's not even exactly what I want to say. You'd have to read both to kind of know what I'm trying to get at, but so good. Yeah. I love stuff like that, where like someone has a theory and they try to play it out, but it's not just like performing experiments and like kidnapping people and like performing experiments on people. Like, no, it's like, it's deeper and more complex than that, and also comes from a place of like love, but then a thirst for knowledge, and it's just so good. We have Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. It's a TV show now, which I'm not going to watch. Really good. The ending is what really punches you. And I remember being really horrified. I almost didn't put this in the pile because it's not that memorable to me compared to what I've read now. But I do remember reading it when I started getting back into reading and being so blown away. I love Gillian Flynn. All of her stuff is amazing. I need her to write more stuff now because I've read it all and I just need more. She's brilliant. She writes the most amazing messed up women and just lets them be messed up women. So, oh, so good. And this was the first time I'd heard a certain phrase too. I've been listening to true crime podcasts too, so there was a certain phrase that I was becoming familiar with, but then like I read a fiction book then that actually talked about it. So, and executed that. So, yeah. We have The Dinner by Herman Koch, and you guys have heard me. I just talked about how this author I can't stand because sometimes the way he writes his characters, with the prejudices and things like that, you're thinking that maybe he actually feels that way, and I can't separate them that well, but his books are page turners and they're so good. So these two sets of parents get together, and I think one of them is related to one of the others, and they're talking about their kids, and they're like, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do about this incident? But you don't know what the incident is until the very end, and the whole time they're talking, the kids are off doing their own thing, and knowing that the parents are probably discussing what they did, and the stuff at the end. What was horrifying is the way that the parents deal with this, but they're parents, so they want to love and protect their kids. And then the collateral damage that happens to one of the characters that really ticked me off, because it could be seen as, I'm not gonna say what category of offensiveness or ism it is because that might give it away, but it really ticked me off and I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna read this author again. Lo and behold though, I really like the book, and it is a very, very good book, and I think that could actually even be a commentary on things and how it's easy for certain people to get away with things than it is for other people. And then just the crime itself is also really upsetting. So yeah. And again, like I said in the last video, I think when I talked about this author, I'm just pulling these assumptions out of my butt because I have not bothered to even look into the author because I don't care that much, and his books are really good. And guess what? I've read 2 of his books and I'm about to read another one. So that's not going to stop me. And yeah, so absolutely amazing. He is brilliant, and this is very disturbing. They made a movie of it, but who cares? I'm not going to watch it. It was kind of low budget. Like, it wasn't advertised that well. It wasn't like a big deal, and I don't feel like watching it. But absolutely good, and it'll make you think, and it'll leave you feeling kind of upset, and as it should, and yeah. 2 more. 1984 by George Orwell. Fun fact, I read this for the first time in college. I was up late reading, and everyone knows about this book, dystopian novel, set in a, and there's so many really great and disturbing lines, and I love a good disturbing paragraph, line, sentence, things, but I will never forget, I was reading this up, it was so good, and there's a part that happens, and it was like 2 a.m. and I jumped when I read a line. It spooked me. I felt like I was being watched and it was being said to me, and it was absolutely terrifying. And so please read this if you have not only for what's happening today, because I think today is kind of a mix of Brave New World, which I didn't like. I hated Brave New World, but there's aspects of Brave New World and then aspects of 1984. And I don't even mean to say this to be maudlin or whatever. I'm just saying it because I think it's kind of true, just the way things have developed in the world. Very good for that, but also it is terrifying. So, can't really see it, but can you imagine if I did that? I don't think that would. And then finally, we have a book that I read this year that my podcast, my friends and I do, which I'll link down below, did an episode on. It was the first book review we did, and is The Dumb House by John Burnside. Very cool Penguin classic, vintage classic. So this is one of those things I talked about, people doing experiments and me really loving that and finding that disturbing, but it has to be done uniquely, not like crass. And so as a child, Luke was told of a story by his mom about the story of the Dumb House, an experiment on newborn babies raised in silence designed to test the innateness of language. So he is obsessed with this growing up. He dissected animals, wanted to find out how their hearts work, all this stuff, and this obsession haunts him and affects who he is and builds him. He is a creepy person, and he gets a hold, I'm not gonna say how or what, but he gets a hold of twin babies, and he performs his own Dumb House experiment. And at points, reading from his point of view. At points, I was terrified of the same things he was, which, yeah, they creeped me out. So, yeah, I'm like, I don't even want to say anymore, but yeah, if you want to hear my and my friends' thoughts about that, you can check out our first episode of About That Book, which again, I will link down below. So yeah, that's it, guys. These are my recommendations for scary books for Halloween. See if you can squeeze 1 or 2 or 3 books in before October is up. They're absolutely fantastic. Like I said, these are all 5-star reviews, actually. I'm pretty sure, maybe The Dinner I gave 4 stars, but these are all high rated reviews, books from me. I hope you really enjoy them. I'm so excited. I am reading a lot this month, so the wrap up for the last 2 months is going to be quite a good number, decent number, and so I'm excited to film that. And then I have my November Tomb Takedown TBR, and I've picked out 4 or 5 books. I'm very excited, and one of them I'm going to be reading with my friend Zena, who had a channel on here, but it's not activated right now. But she's awesome. So yeah, stay tuned, and let me know if you've read any of these, or if you're going to read them because I recommended them, or I don't know what your thoughts are. As always, I like hearing from you guys. So yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!